Hi everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsSaysStamp.com with a mosaic heart tag using the Tim Holtz Mosaic Kit. The paper mosaic kit comes with everything that you need for a realistic looking tile background, and it has 3 steps, and here's a sample on the front of the box how the tiles look. I'll explain the 3-step process, and the first thing you'll do is the grout, and each of these jars are numbered 1, 2, and 3, so you know which step to do first and second and last. So you start with the grout, and then you use the glue, the Distress Paper Mosaic glue, and then finally you're going to use the glaze on the top. You're going to want to start with a sturdy piece of either chipboard or cardboard, and in this case I have some chipboard. And you want to make sure that it's going to be strong enough to hold up the processes and look realistic. I'm also using my palette knife, and I'm going to start off with the process of number 1, which is the grout. This is really light and fluffy, and it's really easy to use, so just grab some with your palette knife and start spreading it onto your shape. You'll want to make sure that you get all the areas covered, and then when you're done getting everything covered, you can go ahead and smooth that out with the palette knife. And once you have everything smoothed out, you want to set this aside to dry for about 20-25 minutes. While my grout is drying, I am going to start cutting up some of my paper, and I've chosen a rainbow type paper, and I'm going to try to add these colors all onto my heart. I won't be needing all of the paper because of the size is quite a bit different, but I'm going to start off by cutting up my paper into strips of color, and once I have my strips of color, then I can go ahead and start cutting into little pieces. So I've cut up all my little pieces of paper, and my grout is dry and ready to go. So to the next step, step number 2, which is the glue. For this you're going to want to use a small paintbrush, and I have one that I don't really care about. And what I like to do is just grab a load full and put it onto my craft sheet, and then I can dip into that and keep the bottle sealed. I'm also using some tweezers because my pieces are really small, and I'm just going to grab some yellows because the yellows sit in the middle, and I'm going to work from the middle and then I'll work to the top and to the bottom. So I want to coat the back of the yellow paper with some of that glue and go ahead and start placing down my pieces. The pieces are cut really randomly. Some are triangular and some are oblique rectangles. So once I have my first piece laid down, I can grab another, and at this point I'm going to be determining the margins that I'll be leaving in between each of my pieces. I kind of want to keep them uniform. So when you're starting off with your initial pieces, make sure that that's the same margin that you want throughout the whole piece. So once you get your first couple ones set down, you're just going to find some flat edges and just start laying everything down. I like to kind of dry fit things together, and once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and grab some more glue and my tweezers. These are super tiny since my heart shape is small and I'm trying to fit in a range of colors. So go ahead and use your tweezers, add your glue, and then continue to set down your pieces. The glue does dry a little bit slower, and it allows you a little bit of time to move your pieces around as needed. At this point I have all my mosaic pieces laid down, or all my paper pieces laid down, and I want to add a layer of glue on top. This glue is a matte finish, so it won't affect the look of the grout in between each of the pieces of paper. So you're going to go ahead and just spread this out. You don't have to be too light-handed with it. You just want to make sure that you grab all the little edges and make sure all those little corners are glued down. And once you have everything covered, you're going to go ahead and set this aside to dry. My top coat of glue is all dry, and so the next step that I want to do is to use the glaze. And this will give that tile look to everything. This is a lot like glossy accents, but it's a bit thinner. So when you go to press it down or squeeze it out, it's a little bit thinner and it really flows into all the little corners. For me, I like to go around on the outside edges of each of those pieces of paper and then go ahead and go into the center and fill in. The glaze is also self-leveling, so when you do these, as long as your piece is sitting flat, the glue will dry flat. If you have it tilted or any kind of angle, the glue will follow that angle, so make sure that you are on a nice flat work surface. I'll go ahead and fill in all my tiny little pieces, and then I'll set this aside to dry. While my mosaic piece is drying, I'm going to go ahead and start working on my background. And I have the Tim Holtz wood grain paper here. I'm not sure if you can see that wood grain. I also have my brayer and some picket fence distress paint, and I'll be working on a resist technique using the paint and the brayer and also some distress stain. So I want to shake up my bottle real good, and then I'm going to go ahead and just squirt out some paint onto my craft sheet. I am using the new lids that Tim came out with for the paints, and this allows me to use these as a regular paint. So I'm just brayering through. I'm going to get about the width of the paper onto my brayer of paint, make sure that I'm pretty well even. And so just brayering that a few times. Then I'm going to go ahead and run the brayer over the top of the paper real lightly, and I'm just grabbing the mountainous areas of the embossed paper with that paint. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to hit this with my heat tool and allow this to dry. My wood grain paper is nice and dry, and I'll be using two colors of my distress stain, and that is broken china and peacock feathers. I like to tap the stain onto my craft sheet first to get the flow going, and then I'm just going to randomly add some color to this background. You can already see the wood grain popping up with that picket fence paint. And so now I'll fill in with the peacock feathers in between some of the areas of that broken china. Once I have the entire panel filled in with color, I'm going to go ahead and spritz some water on here and get the colors to flow a little bit. You can really see the resist of the paint. And once I have the water on there, I'm going to grab a paper towel, and now I can start to gently wipe off the stain from the top layer of paint. I'll be mounting everything onto a manila tag, and since I'm going for a clean and simple look and a really kind of rainbow bright, I am going to go ahead and add some of my picket fence paint to the tag just to whiten it up a bit. At this point, I have things starting to lay out onto my tag, and I've added some word strips. I also thought it would be nice to add a piece of that paper up at the top that will coordinate with my heart. I've also added some tissue tape and some industrious foil stickers and another word strip. I've added some adhesive to the back side, and I will just go ahead and pull off the backing to the centerpiece, and now I can go ahead and lay this onto my tag. And once I have that in place, I can go ahead and reach under and remove the rest of the backing and adhere this down completely. I'll be adding a key to this piece, and I have wrapped a token around with some wires and just wrap that around the key. I can adhere this down with either my matte medium, or you could also use a glue gun, whichever you prefer. I'm adding the matte medium to the tallest parts of the back of the key so that it'll sit flat onto my paper. And then I can add a generous amount of matte medium to the back of my heart. And I want to make sure I get it in the center just to prevent any bowing. So once I have that all covered, I can go ahead and place this onto my piece. And to keep everything flat, I did set this on my work table overnight, and I did put a little jar on top just to hold everything down and to hold it flat. To finish things off, I added a ribbon at the top and also a mirrored heart, and then down towards the bottom I've used some nail head findings, also from Tim Holtz. I hope I've given you some inspiration on how to use the Distress Paper Mosaic Kit from Tim Holtz. And as always, thanks for watching.